Hello, I'm Richard Dolan. I'm an author and historian on the topic of UFOs. Today I've got a treat for you. The UFO cover-up in 10 minutes. UFO cover-up? Preposterous, you say? Guess again. That might have been an argument people could make 20, maybe 30, maybe 50 years ago. We now know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the UFO problem engaged the attention of some very, very high-level people throughout every single decade of this nation's history from World War II onward. But we didn't know for sure until the mid-1970s, when we had a Freedom of Information Act that finally got some teeth in the United States. The big surprise about freedom of information was the fact that UFO researchers started to petition and receive thousands of pages of UFO-related documents from their government. I want to read to you a couple of choice excerpts from some of these documents that we now have in the public domain. Here's a great one. 1947, September 23rd, from U.S. General Nathan Twining, a 3-star general at the time. He later went on to be a 4-star general and Chief of Staff for the United States Air Force. It is the opinion that the phenomenon reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious. The reported operating characteristics, such as extreme rates of climb, maneuverability, particularly in roll, and action which must be considered evasive when sighted, lend belief to the possibility that some of the objects are controlled either manually, automatically, or remotely. He describes 6 common characteristics that military observers were reporting about these objects. Metallic or light reflecting surface, circular or elliptical in shape, flat on bottom and domed on top. Ask yourself, what kind of aircraft in 1947 is flying around that's supposed to look like that? Here's another memo from the FBI, 1949. Officers of G2, that's Army Intelligence, have discussed the matter of unidentified aircraft, otherwise known as flying discs, flying saucers, balls of fire. This matter is considered top secret by intelligence officers of both the Army and the Air Forces. Oh, this is a great one. 1951, Robins Air Force Base out of Georgia. A pilot flying out of the base reported an object fly by his aircraft. Object described as flat on top and bottom and appearing from a front view to have rounded edges and slightly beveled. What? One of the interesting things about the UFOs in the history of this country, 1952, a very big year. Why? Well, for one, it seemed like the entire nation was being invaded by UFOs. Civilians and military people alike around the country were watching these things. Military people reported them a lot. This is a memo from the Director of Scientific Intelligence for the CIA to the Director of the agency, Walter Beadle Smith, in December 1952. And this is what it says. At this time, the reports of incidents convince us that there is something going on that must have immediate attention. Sightings of unexplained objects at great altitudes and traveling at high speeds in the vicinity of major U.S. defense installations are of such nature that they are not attributable to natural phenomena or known types of aerial vehicle. It's the CIA. People don't just come out and say, "Boss, I think we're being invaded." But that's about as close as you're going to get in a classified memo to the director of the Central Intelligence Agency in 1952. It gets better. This is a document from 1976, United States Defense Intelligence Agency reporting about an amazing UFO encounter over the city of Tehran in Iran. Now remember, this is back in the days of the Shah when Iran was a key U.S. ally. What happened is that on September 18, 1976, citizens of Tehran looked up in the sky and saw a very bizarre object. No one knew what it was. An extremely bright, unidentified flying object. Finally, the traffic controller went out and looked and saw, sure enough, a very bizarre object. He called the Iranian Air Force. Next thing you know, not one but 2 F-4 fighter jets are scrambled to investigate and intercept the object. In both cases, in succession, each F-4 jet got within 25 nautical miles of the object. The pilots saw the object. They tracked it on radar. It gave a very large radar return. And in both cases, key electronics and aviation equipment went offline on these top-level aircraft. Not once, but twice. In the second instance, a really extraordinary encounter occurred when this object detached a smaller object from it, which then pursued the F-4 interceptor. The pilot pulled an extreme turn to get away from the object, and this small object turned inside his own arc and then rejoined the mother craft for a perfect rejoin. That's 1976. What can do that today, much less 35 years ago? Well, officially speaking, we don't really know. Unofficially, I think we do know. These are advanced technology that is not being operated, officially at least, by our own civilization. And therein lies the problem with the UFO phenomenon. Everyone in the world knows there's something going on, and no one in official power is ever willing to admit it. There are people who are so hide-bound in their opinions and so skeptical about this without bothering to look at any of the evidence that they will say, well, the government did look into this. The government did have Project Blue Book. They investigated it. They found there was really nothing to this. I heard that there was a scientific investigation too that also debunked UFOs. That explanation to this day is used by the Air Force and by the government to dismiss the whole topic of UFOs. But here's the deal. Project Blue Book, a joke of an operation. I have a letter here from 1955 to the commander at Ent Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, Colorado, about UFO reports. In keeping with the purposes of the UFOB program, in this case UFOB means UFO, it is necessary to strive to reach as many case solutions as possible, thereby reducing the percentage of unknowns to a bare minimum. Not a minimum, a bare minimum. As pointed out in the UFOB guide, the word solution cannot always be used in the scientific sense when dealing with UFOBs. For this purpose, it must more often mean that a given case meets a given hypothesis. If it looks like it might be a flock of birds, you don't have to bother investigating, just put down birds and it's solved. Here's a picture of the Blue Book staff in the early to mid-1960s. Do they inspire your confidence? What I'm really digging is the poster in the back of the solar system. Yeah, that'll help investigate UFO cases. And we're told that they investigated a total of 12,618 sightings, and only 701 remained unidentified. Look, I'll tell you right now, those people didn't do one investigation that was worth a damn. And then there's the study of UFOs by the University of Colorado back in the 1960s, otherwise known as the Condon Committee. There's a picture of Edward Condon. You can see how seriously he takes the topic of UFOs. The funny thing about the Condon Committee report is that the scientists who were involved in it began to suspect that this was a rigged game right from the beginning. A few of them confronted Condon about this, in which he admitted to them that yes, there was not going to be an affirmative conclusion coming out of this report no matter what. Shortly after that, there was a mutiny on the project, and half the scientific members were thrown right off the Condon Committee. Another group was scrabbled together. They threw together the big report, in which, amazingly anyway, 30% of those were unidentified cases. And what was the conclusion? Edward Condon told you, keep things moving along, people, nothing to see here. That is the scientific foundation, if you can believe it, as to why your government continues to this day to deny that there is a UFO reality worth investigating, to which we say, bullcrap. One more thing for fun that we could look at. Let's fast forward to 1997. Here's a U.S. Air Force general telling you exactly what happened in Roswell in 1947.
That period of time, dummies were dropped all around there. And I think it's logical to assume that the people there saw Air Force ambulances come out, they saw gurneys come out, they saw body bags come out because the dummies were put into body bags to protect them.
Say what? We all kind of know what an alien's supposed to look like, and that doesn't look like an alien to me. If you really think you're going to be confused by a 6-foot dummy, then you're a dummy. There's something happening that's beyond our current capabilities that might be a problem to explain to the world. The problem with that, however, is that the world is moving along a little too fast. The UFO secrecy, very soon, is going to be a thing of the past. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.